I wrote about it a couple weeks ago about Rick Rubin, super producer. He's done every artist under the sun, every genre, like Red Hot Chili Peppers, Jay-Z, Eminem, Johnny Cash. But he actually said something that I fully, it's not something I changed my mind on, something I didn't even think about. He said that there's no such thing as wrong taste. He says, you can't have a wrong taste. It's like you have your own taste. People might not like it. Doesn't make it right or wrong. There can be tastes that last a long time and that have longer shelf lives, but to say somebody has a right or wrong taste is completely not true. And I agree with him, and I'll take one example. It's like,
all right, welcome to another episode of Not Investment Advice, the AMA special. We have Trung Phan, Bilal Zaidi here. In full transparency, you probably worked it out, but we are pre-recording this, as we mentioned last episode.
You know what? Just not to confuse people, I'll flip my hat around.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, Jack is not here right now, but if he's able to join, he'll be able to join us and answer those questions as well.
Can you imagine if Jack jumped in off the top rope right now? Just
oh my God.
Oh my
That'd be
goodness,
incredible.
man. Oh,
the Hardy
man.
Boys style. Yeah, that was an old WWF reference for the old people in the room. All right, let's get straight into it, man. Shawn Michaels, Jesus. All right, so so first of all, AMA, Ask Me Anything. We've done a few of these. People generally like them. Anything goes. You're allowed to ask anything. We'll always try to answer honestly. And if you didn't submit a question this time, but you want to do it next time, we'll probably do one in a few weeks again. Make sure in the Telegram group, which is in the link below. The first question, let's just get straight to it. Laurie O asks, would love to hear more about each of your journeys to your first 100 or 1,000 true fans. And really quickly, the idea of 1,000 true fans is from a guy called Kevin Kelly. Is a famous blog post he wrote called 1,000 True Fans. Founder of Wired, great. Seems like a very philosophical, interesting dude. Some great podcasts he's done with Tim Ferriss, some of my favorites. Have you read that article or the blog post?
I have read it, yeah.
It's a classic.
It's a classic. Well, the idea is that,
go on. What's the idea?
1,000 true fans is you can make a living. You have 1,000 true fans and they pay you $100 a year. That's $100 grand a year.
There we go. That's $100 grand a year. Right? You can live in most places for $100 grand. Except for New York, where I live, but no, I'm messing around. No, that was a joke. You 100% could live on $100 grand. I'm messing around. Sorry, that was bad.
I feel that might be. Okay,
no,
guys,
it's completely
wrap up.
fine. It depends where you're living, but all jokes aside, 100 grand is a good living anywhere, right? So, but the definition of true fan is someone who's willing to buy your stuff, right? So it's not just a follower. To clarify, it's not just a follow on Twitter or. A subscriber to a podcast is maybe a bit closer, but still they're not paying for anything. So it comes from this older idea of think of a touring artist, right? Like they're a musician, they're going to pay for the CD. Back in the day, your merch at the concert, come to your concert, they might even travel around with you and be like on the road with you. Those people are your diehard fans, and those people will be willing to spend $100 a year. So that's where it comes from. If you're also interested, Jack and I had quite a deep discussion on this on Creator Lab episode 2, where me and him did a live together back in the day, and we talked about how that shifted from 1,000 true fans to 100 true fans. And so if you're interested, you can go and check that out as well. But yeah, Trung, first of all, would you consider yourself to have 1,000 true fans? You have over 650,000 subscribers or followers on Twitter. I don't know how many people on your email list. I don't know if you share that.
Yeah, I don't know how many would pay and true fans is a different level, dude.
Because you've got paid subscribers too, right? I'm one of them on Twitter.
Yeah, but that's more like that's different. 1,000, like 1,000. We're talking $100 to $1,000 a year. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't even know if I've gone there yet, to be honest, man.
So
to be honest.
Maybe we shift that idea though. So for what we can say, but I'd say you've got 100 people. If you DM them, right?
Well, I'll say this. I'd probably have 100 people. I don't like the idea of paying, to be honest. Like in that sense, is like there's different ways of exchange of value. No, but I mean like the thesis being, because that you kind of brought it up, right? It's very different if you're hitting subscribe and hitting that notification bell and giving somebody money. Like you jump the chasm, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, you truly find value from this individual's work. I'll just give you an example. So like Substack, I don't charge on my Substack. But people have pledged money, which by pledging, you just click and you say, if the second he decides to turn on payments, I will immediately pay. It has my credit card already pre-committed. So, I have quite a few of those. So to say my journey to that, the journey to having people willing to pay for my work is still ongoing. Like to have 1,000 true fans is, I don't think I'm there. I don't think I'm honestly there because I don't believe that. I believe I provide a lot of value. I just don't know what niche it is because Barely doesn't count, right? Barely is a software product, and it's not direct. It's kind of related to me.
But they're not only using it because it's trunks. They might know about it through you, but it needs to deliver, right? It's not, oh, I'm paying for Trunk's content because I like the way he writes, or I'm going on his course, or I'm paying for an NFT like the way Jack's done. Jack has got a course.
Jack clearly has 1,000
Jack 100%
true fans,
does.
Right?
Yeah, and he did that from before he did NFTs because people would buy his courses and educational
stuff.
It's like,
it's because you're aligning like because the thing about Jack, and he's talked about it, man, he's so aligned his online personality with his business and his artistic ventures that you're buying the entire package, right? That the Barely is such a roundabout way to buy the trunk package. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It makes a ton of sense for me to do the software product, a ton, and to be like spill the beans, like we're doing quite well, but it's like it's not directly me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's a great way to put it. And what I'd say is I think it's quite an honest answer to say you're not sure if you're there in terms of like selling something as an individual.
Could I get 1,000 people to show up MSG and pay $100 each? Probably not, right?
I think personally, I think you could from the outside, but it would take selling. Like people don't realize what it takes to get 1,000 people to do it.
It takes selling, yeah.
It takes selling. You'd have to pump them with it,
do a
and
proper show, get great guests. Because remember, getting people in person, that's a double commitment, right?
That's tough.
Especially my age range is like now they gotta have somebody babysitting their kid. You see, that's the thing, right? It's like you're asking, and maybe I'm probably underselling because I'm getting hung up on the actual financial number of it, and because I've never really tried a direct thing like that. I'd say I have 1,000 fans that are true-ish. I don't know if I have 1,000.
So let's adjust the question then. So I think that was a good clarification for Laurie's question, but let's say I think his intent was probably to say closer to, maybe not the paying, but people who are, there's a fan account. There's literally Trung fan account, right?
I've had hundreds of people. Okay, you know what? I like your reframing. I've had hundreds of people that have hit me up multiple times and be like, hey man, really like this, really like this, really like this, right? Like that's even just to get somebody to type something is like, man, even more than just getting a freaking like a lazy little like, right? But, let's turn it on you.
That's a good, go ahead.
No, let's turn it on you. What's your answer to the question?
Similarly, again, I think paying wise, I've never even tried to sell anything to anyone with like Creator Lab or anything like that. I think the closest was trying to get people to do a live when we did it with Jack. And honestly speaking, a lot of that definitely would have come from Jack, right? Because it was in the middle of the pandemic. He was really flying with his NFT stuff. Maybe it was actually before NFTs, but he would tweet our link and we would get people to sign up. But I probably got over 100 people signing up for that before we even tweeted it out from email list and putting it on the pod and stuff like that. So I wouldn't say I'm at a stage even necessarily where 1,000 people would pay me for something. But let's just say the idea was, do you have 100 people that know your work, that value it enough, that say, if you launch something, if you start a company, if you wanted to sell something, give me a shout. And if they like that offer, they might buy it. I think, maybe. Right. But
that's a good reframing also, because I would say yes to that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's closer. And I would say, do I have 100 relationships that I think are beyond just someone pressing like on Twitter or something like that? Probably. But again, we haven't fully tested it. So regardless, I think the question though is really around your journey to that. So I would say really quickly from my side, I would just frame it around Creator Lab. My first podcast, that was really, you saw I've been doing it since 2015, 2016, but I went super hard in the pandemic, right? 2020, I was doing one a week with like really big guests, crazy work, like 10, 15 hours prep for one interview. It was a lot, but I was like so on it that it really grew quite a lot during that time. And I would say that was so much about like one-on-one stuff. I was literally like DMing people. Like that's probably how we spoke originally. I was like, pitching shit hard. I was
You're
pitching the
doing
Uber
stuff
driver.
that don't scale.
Doing stuff that don't scale, exactly. And that was, obviously you're referencing Paul Graham's essay, founder of Y Combinator. And
Let me tell that story quickly.
Yeah, go on,
do you want to tell
it.
it?
No,
well,
go for
he
it.
was just talking about the example he brought up with the Stripe brothers, with the payment firm, the Collison twins. Not sorry, called the Collison brothers, not the twins. They're not twins. But there's a very famous story about it's called the Collison install. So Patrick Collison would walk around like YC with the startup incubator program, and like he'd be like, "Hey," and like go up to somebody in the program and be like, "Hey, you want to try my payment startup?" Like, yeah, sure. He's like, "Okay, give me your computer," and he installed it directly. Like that doesn't scale, right? But he's like, it sounded like Bilal hitting people up, like in the DMs. Like you're very on it, right?
Yeah.
And like, I think I have one thought and then a comment. The thought on the question was exactly this. I love how you're saying, let's mold and kind of reframe it. I think my initial answer is like I said no was because I haven't really tried, right? Like truly, really, honestly, I haven't even tried in the traditional manner, trying to sell directly. Can you get 1,000 people to spend $100 or 100 people to spend $1,000? Like I haven't really tried that. The other part of it is I like your reframing of it is a journey, right? It's like, that's the other part of it. Is like, are we kind of there and we don't even know yet? I would say yes.
Yeah. But I think that even just around like tactically, basically getting to that is that there is a journey and so there are stages that you kind of hit a brick wall. Like, so let's just say for you from the outside, I think when we first started speaking, you probably had single digit thousand followers on Twitter, right? I think you had
under
like
1,000 probably.
Yeah. And so, but just seeing you go from that to 10 to 20, I remember DMing you and you were going super viral and you were like 7,000. I was like, man, you're getting to 20,000 in no time. And you're like 100K up next. And or something like that. And I was like, wow, like he's already thinking about 100K. That means, now you got way more. So I think that's just the bigger idea here is like understanding there's going to be times where those big milestones, they like hit 10, I hit 20, I hit 100, whatever. In my case, it was similar with, podcasts. It was like getting first 1,000, 10,000, etc. Most people think, oh, you get this one big spike and then now you've got those people forever. And that isn't, specifically with podcasting, that's not how it works, right? Because is really one of the hardest areas to grow. And I've heard lots of people say this, even your ex-colleagues Sam and Sean from My First Million were talking about it. It was with Andrew Wilkinson in their live episode they did about basically those guys have all had multi-million-dollar exits and businesses, and the hardest thing they've done in growing audience was a podcast because there's no discoverability and you're convincing someone to listen for over an hour. And then once even if they love 5 episodes, they might hate the 6th and they never come back. So there's this constant thing of filling up the funnel at the top in marketing terms and retaining them at the bottom and constantly delivering. So that is why it's generally very difficult outside of YouTube. And so for me, it was really just literally, like you said, doing things that don't scale, speaking to people initially, emailing out people. When I first launched it, I convinced the head of Google sales to share it in an end of year recap to 10,000 people, 20,000 people. And anywhere I could, I went to platforms and pitched it to them and said, hey, TuneIn Radio. Have you even heard of TuneIn Radio? Right, a lot of people don't even know what it is. They had like tens of millions of listeners. And I got featured on the homepage by creating a partnership with them alongside New York Times and NFL, right?
Things that don't scale.
Yeah. Things that you're not really thinking about. It's a little outside the box. And a lot of my subscribers to Creator Lab come from early partnerships I developed with those tier 2. I'm just going to be honest. They're not Apple and Spotify. I tried with them. They wouldn't do anything, right? But there's like another one, Castbox. I remember back in the day, this other app that was massive on Android. I found the founder, I spoke to them. And by then, I think it was already featured, but they featured me in like a...
Dude, you hustled.
Yeah, I was hustling a lot in the beginning, especially. And so that's kind of some of the stuff
when you hear about these rappers
do.
That sell tapes out of their trunk, right? It's like, it's like...
That's
all you're framing that, man, is... great. That was a great question, because I've actually never thought about it. And... I'm not against selling. I just there's other ways to monetize, and I'm selling myself every day, right? I'm shilling myself.
I will say, and I'm thinking out loud here, and I'm trying to be honest with you here as a friend, as a co-host. I think you have these two sides to you from the outside. One, you're like the most willing to share. Like when we do a podcast, you share everything. you share the clips, whatever. But there's also another part of you, which is the shit poster Twitter culture, where anything that sounds too promotional, that is selling, is generally frowned upon. So, for example, I remember for a hot minute, you were starting this course thing, right? Like you were going to do this power writing or some sort of writing course. You didn't end up launching it. But I remember you putting that, and some of your friends on Twitter will be like, "Oh, he's selling the course," and it's kind of annoying, right? Like, obviously they're joking around and messing with you.
Good one. Our boy Alex hit me up. I mean, we had a good joke. I'll tell you what. I actually went, Alex, yo, can you pump this for me? And then he did it in the shit posty way.
That was his way of doing it.
Oh yeah, no, but
that's smart.
It was perfect, right? No, I mean, I'm not against it at all.
But yeah, I was just going to ask, I'm curious to get your actual take, because that's from the outside. I think you're more than willing to promote stuff, especially your own stuff.
I mean, look at Barely. It's insane the shilling I'm doing, right? But again, is that 1,000 true fans? It might be. You're actually convincing me that it is. Yeah. Because, I mean, the reason why the distribution is even working, I mean, mind you, it's a great product. Like, my co-founder is an animal. And, but people wouldn't, like, the whole point of why we're doing this organic word of mouth is it's coming through me as a mouthpiece and as somebody that uses it every day, right?
Oh, it's a perfect combo.
I'm sold. You know what?
You're in.
1,000 true fans. My journey's happening. So let me answer it, though. It goes back to what we said about Jack. It had to be something that fit yin and yang with who I was as a media personality. And this does, because if you go look at advanced Twitter search, look at my Twitter handle and type in Barely, look at the shilling I'm doing. It is the funniest shit in the world.
No,
man.
100%.
It is like every single shill of Barely is a shit post. Every single one. There's dozens of them. And I'm telling people right now, this is driving like a lot of traffic and conversions on the website.
No, it's working. It's working. And I wasn't criticizing. I was just trying to share from the outside the juxtaposition
you nailed it though, man.
between those two. Where if you feel promotional, it's not the right. It's also not the right tone for the way you post. So the way you're doing it barely works, because you're joking around and you're mentioning it, and people are like, 5% of those people will be like, I'm actually going to click this. 2% of them are going to turn into users.
Nailed it, dude.
That's generally what happens. So anyway, great question from Laurie. Let's move on to the next one, because we could be all day on that one. This one, I'll mix up the order a little bit. So this is from Faraz Rahman. This was to you and Jack, because you're parents. So right now we'll just do Trung. Would you get your kids started in business early, or insist they get a job first? That's quite an interesting question.
That's a great question. I think where we're landing mentally is, so my wife loves Shark Tank. And I know that anybody's ever watched Shark Tank. You've seen the kids that go on stage. Like, I've been watching Shark Tank since I was 2 years old.
So good. Yeah, classic.
Right? It's like, so what I will say is this. I'm not going to try to get my kid into quote unquote business. Like that is not even that's not even something that's crossed my mind. Having said that, getting them to work is, I think, extremely important. I want my kid to learn how to do stuff that he might not want to do, because half of life is doing stuff you don't want to do.
Yeah.
And then your point in life is trying to get to a place where you actually just do what you want all the time. But even then, you can't not avoid doing shit you don't want to do, right?
Yeah.
Definitely would get him to do some work. And if not work, the alternative is just put him into a lot of organized sports. My kid is very, when he wants to do something, like goes in deep on it. So I don't think that'd be a huge problem. But I mean, listen, if he likes business, amazing. I will give him all the resources he can have to learn about businesses. And if if I'm an 8-year-old LT, my son comes to me, he's like, hey, Dad, I want to start a lemonade stand, but it's online and we're going to do it with Web3 blockchain. I'm like, go nuts, man. Here's some seed funding. I want some returns on this.
Yeah.
But business, no, honestly, man, business it's not, I don't think I want to get my kid involved in business. I'd rather he be do stuff he wants, but that forces a little bit of discipline. So maybe
that's
get him
great.
to work.
And I don't have kids, but the only thing I'd add to that without having kids is, I've obviously thought about this as well, because I do want to have kids in the future, is, kind of similar to what you said. It's really about like, what do they naturally like, and really harnessing that and encouraging those things. Because I think that's the most important thing at that age, is really just giving them confidence
100%,
to find the things they find fun. And obviously this is me without actually doing it. So maybe when I'm doing it, I'm like, hey, you selling hats? But no, I'm messing around. But I think there's also, I think similar outside of business, it's more about what are the values you're teaching them, which for me is, like you said, the value of understanding the value of money understanding what honest day's work is, and I think both are really important. Understanding what a job is like is actually quite important too, because even if you're not going to be a worker or employee, understanding what that's like, it gives you empathy, even if you're a business owner in the future or you're an artist or whatever. You've just understood how 98% of the world lives. So I think that's important
and that
either
the
way.
grind is real, right? Like you gotta
And
know.
also think getting a hard job, like, you know, the typical student jobs we've talked about on the show,
painting,
you know,
with 3-day painting career.
3-day painting, lifting stuff, working, even retail, you know, anything like that is going to be a hard day's work, and you got paid $10 an hour, whatever, $15 an hour, whatever the you know, minimum wages basically. So you really, when you get up to $100 an hour or $1,000 an hour in the future, you're gonna really remember that time you were earning 12. You know what I mean? So
Well, man,
I think
dude,
that's
this is why
important.
Jack would have been great for this, because man, we've over the years we've heard Jack's wild, not wild, but like his stories of working at the car factory, the Hyundai car factory.
That's what builds the discipline, man. So yeah, great question. Let's move on to the next one here. This one was from Jack, not Jack Butcher, another NFT profile picture though. Jack said, interested to hear your thoughts on the hype cycle in technology and AI one we're currently in. What distinguishes true innovation from a pump and dump? And how do you navigate this? And will my NFTs ever be worth anything again? Laugh out loud.
We can't answer the NFT part, but let's talk
there's
about
no investment advice. But
Bilal, why don't you talk through the hype cycle and what that is typically?
Yeah, I can't even remember all the phases, to be honest. But essentially, do you want
Rafa
this?
will pull up the graphic. Let's ask Rafa to add the graphic here.
Yeah, do you know the stages off the top of your head? There's like euphoria, or is that?
I'll pull it up right now. Rafa, if you could add the graphic, that would be amazing. Thank you. So this is called the Gartner hype cycle. And I mean, I'm sure a lot of listeners are familiar with it, but we'll just walk through it. But there's basically like this chart, and the y-axis is visibility, and the x-axis is time. And Bilal kind of describing it is there's the first event is called a technology trigger, and then it blows up. People are like, oh my God, it's brand new technology. Yeah. Let's all get in on it. And then you hit the peak of inflated expectations. That's when you think it'll just change everything in the world, and you start realizing the applications aren't that great. And then this is funny, the trough of disillusionment. So what's funny is that cryptos hit that inflation in the trough multiple times over the past decade.
In a short period of time, Yeah,
and then you slowly go back up. It's called the slope of enlightenment. You figure out what the true applications are, the pros and cons of that product or innovation, and then you hit the plateau of productivity. It's not as high as a peak of the expectations, but is sustained and ongoing. What do I think AI is at right now? I think we're actually in this cycle a bit in the peaky of inflated expectations. I think a lot just from barely AI, our product. When we see monthly churn on the product, our sense is, it's a lot of people they're tourists. They're window shopping. They're like, oh, this is cool. Let's see what this is all about. Trying it out, and they're like, it's not for me.
They didn't find the sticky use of it.
And I'm sure that's happening in ChatGPT.
And honestly, probably a lot of that is not even barely specific. It's about...
It's generative AI, right?
Yeah, it's like, did this thing everyone's talking about actually help me with anything day to day?
Totally. 100%. And but what I will say, the crypto versus AI it's just so clear to me that these use cases are...
real.
It's literally everything. We talked about this last week.
It's not just an idea. It's not just like one day people could send money to each other. Yeah. One day we could have concert tickets as NFTs.
Or
we're doing
these 30 things that happen for Bitcoin to be the global reserve currency. It's like, no, tomorrow. But no, not even tomorrow. In the next 6 months, when Google, we talked about last week, when they flip on all these products, across all their billion plus user services like Gmail, Search, YouTube, Drive, Google Workspace, people are using this every single second, every day. Like, that's the reality. I think we're a bit of inflated expectations, and we're probably hitting now where you're not necessarily yet the trough of disillusionment. That might happen, I think, if no real business models crop up, or people are finding, well, you know what? The large language models might actually destroy like the super profitable like search model that Google has, or really hamper it. So yeah, it's great for productivity, but then there's a lot of problems like misinformation, or not misinformation, it's like hallucinations, and it's not as good or fast, or maybe it's too expensive on the cloud infrastructure side. So I think that's where we're at. I think there's going to be a shake on the next 6 months where we really see, it is world changing, but kind of all the hopes and visions we had as the problems start trickling out, you kind of lower your expectations.
Yeah, not much more to add apart from I agree with everything you said. I definitely think we're at that peak, and Rafa again was showing it on screen already, hopefully by this point. But if you're only listening, just Google the hype cycle by Gartner and Google Images or whatever, and you can see that it definitely crypto. We hit that in 2021, and we did it in 2017. We did it probably in 2012 or whatever it was as well on a smaller scale. And you can literally go on Google Trends and type in Bitcoin, type in crypto, type in AI. You'll see a similar chart, which is pretty interesting. And so the other criteria why I think we're at that peak part for AI is because we're in the storytelling phase where people are like, this is how you can use it. We could have a travel assistant that does this. It's going to book this for you. But you can't do that yet. And so the proof is going to be in the pudding, as they say, where you're actually seeing, oh, this assistant is actually helping me. So right now, I am using ChatGPT and Bard for summarizing text, or barely the AI to summarize text and to generate emails and all that sort of stuff. And that, for that purpose, is already better than Google search for that specific set of queries. But all the other stuff that is being talked about, a lot of it I'm not actually using. And another example I know a little bit about is the podcast editing, because I've seen there are these really cool videos, you probably saw it, where people on a timeline were showing this thing where you've got 3 cameras of 3 different guests, and you can see the timeline is essentially automatically optimizing, and it's going through. It looks really cool on the video. And I don't know, Rafa, if you can find that video, but that's kind of a cool visual. And I know, and when you look at the comments, you can tell 99% of people probably obviously aren't editing podcasts or have never done video editing or something like that. And they're like, wow, don't need editors anymore. And I would say, if you've actually used it, at the moment, that's not the case, right?
Yeah.
So it does do one thing. It switches between cameras for you automatically, which is great. But you know what also does that? The thing we're using right now, Zoom.
Yeah.
Zoom automatically switches between 2 people.
Because it has AI in it.
Because it has AI, because it recognizes there's a wave going up in audio and it switches to that person and probably some other stuff. And so it doesn't do all the things that a real editor is doing at the moment, but it may do in the future. The same way Descript I talked about last episode does some incredible stuff, taking out filler words,
they're amazing,
taking out spacing, speeding things up, etc., etc. So I just think a lot of those videos look super cool until you understand the topic in and out. And another example I say is, let's say advertising, because that's another area I know a little bit about. Digital advertising 100% can be optimized and improved by AI, 100%.
Oh,
right?
Meta, that's one of the big Meta things. Auto-generated images, text headlines.
Creative and stuff. And again, similar to what we said about Google in last episode, this stuff has already been doing it, right? Like all of the what's called like bidding algorithm is already AI based. It's based on all these signals of who's most likely to click your ad and who's already reacted to something similar. What is the word that worked in other people's ads, this audience, etc. So this stuff is already happening. There is already AI, and it will replace jobs for sure. You might need only 1 designer versus 5 in the future, but and similarly, you might need 1 Bilal's company, which is, me helping companies run their advertising media or whatever. You might need 1 of me instead of the 5 versions of me, scale-wise. But at the moment, you still need to know the ins and outs to trust what you're doing is right. And so that's kind of where I think there's an interesting thing that's happening, where the really high-skilled people that aren't just executors, like you need to understand the execution, but you also need to understand strategically how things work and piece things together.
50,000 foot, this is why you need humans in the loop, right?
Exactly. And so, yeah, I think that's another part.
Let me actually square your thought on this. I'll add one thing and then kind of finish off where you extend is like you're talking about, it's already here. So I think what this actually means though is just the AI with Meta probably has more economic value than most of Web3 or all of Web3 combined already.
Yeah,
just
I agree.
Whatever Meta is doing with AI on the ad side is already adding more economic activity. So I think even if you look at the hype cycle, the baseline of the AI hype cycle is already so much higher than Web3. The other thing I'd add is when we say 12th edition illusionment, Bilal's kind of touched on it, is I think you'll see when you actually start seeing some job losses from this or job dislocation, and then people find new ways to integrate and find different work, that's going to feel like a negative for a lot of people, right? And then you have government regulators coming in. I mean, they just dragged a bunch of people in front of Congress from the AI side. It's like, now you're seeing people grapple with these expectations. And then when that happens, you start seeing, okay, it's not living up to, it's going to change 100% of 100% of everything, right? Of course it's not. But it's going to change a lot of things, but the expectation is so high that, I think the next 6 months, we're really going to start seeing grapple with reality. It's not doing everything it said it can do, even though it's incredible. And then people are grappling with what that actually means for society.
Definitely. No, that's a great summary. And the last thing I'll add, 10 seconds, is I do think even all of that, the stuff that's coming is real and it's coming at a pace that you're like, wow, I can't believe they're doing that with video. I can't believe they're doing that with images. I can't believe they're doing that with sound. So I'm not dampening any of it. It's just, let's say
this is a mobile computing. This is an internet level improvement and step change.
100%.
But we're asked specifically about the hype cycle, so we're
perfect. Yeah. All right. So this question is an interesting one from Ali Naylor. It said, would love to know in your individual journeys to build your own business, if you ever dealt with awkward situations, betrayal from friends or co-workers. If so, how did you manage that? So I'd say both business or just career, basically, just from co-workers or friends. That's an interesting one. Have you ever felt betrayed by anyone, whatever you want to share?
I've had numerous, listen, I've worked in a lot of, what I'll say is this. It's like the best analogy I have is, indeed, it's like dating and relationships, right? It's like, and you probably heard this, right? Startups, listen, you might be with a startup co-founder for more than you are with your significant other. I mean, and people are people. They have pros, they have cons, they have flaws, they have amazing human positives, love, compassion, all that. It's
and then they have the other side, jealousy, envy. Right? They have broken childhoods that manifest in their relationship with you, like all sorts of stuff.
Very specific, but
no, I mean that's like what happens to a lot of people, right?
Well, answer the question is like, yes, I wouldn't call it betrayal. I was like, I've been in business situations or partnerships where I don't talk to the people I was involved with anymore. This happened a number of times. It's not just one time, and you know what? It's how it is. It's like life. I don't talk to a lot of people that I was friends with in high school and university, and we've had falling outs with people. The answer is, I don't know if Ali wanted a tactical question. There is no tactics. I think this is just, you deal with humans in every facet of life, and you should fully expect with business, when there's money involved, ego, because what you do for a living is so much also what you are as a person, is your identity. You will deal with bullshit. And the only thing I'd say is I really like, somebody told me this Charlie Munger line, which is adapted to working with people. And they basically said, so the Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett line is, if you wouldn't invest in something for 10 years, don't invest in it for 10 minutes. Yeah. Like, I wish I'd taken that advice in 2021, because I invested in a lot of things I wouldn't hold for 10 years. Yeah. And we both did. We talk about it. Our terminology is degen. But I think, you know what? If you want to clip me and make this the philosophical trunk, I say the same thing for business relationships and going into endeavors that are long-term. I mean, dating is obviously quite complicated because you can't know.
You can't know straight up,
Business is more like, okay, you can look at the outlines of a business or a startup situation and be like, do I want to work with this person for 10 years? If the answer is no,
you shouldn't work with them today. That's basically it. You shouldn't work with them today. Yeah, I agree. To add to that, I think Naval has a similar thing, which is probably taken from Warren Buffett and Munger in the first place. But similarly, if you're not going to work with them for 10 years, don't work with them for a day, and or something along those lines. And that, to me, I've definitely seen that over and over again now as well in my own career, because, and now look, I think 10 years, it depends. All of this, it depends. Sometimes you're in a position where you don't have that choice. And so early in your career, especially, you don't have that leverage to be as picky and choosy, especially when you're 21 coming out of college. Sometimes you need to take what your options are and you need to do the smart, pragmatic thing. Once you've built some skills, built some reputation, and then you've built some leverage, then you can start being a bit more picky and say, I don't like that manager, I'm not going to work with them. I'm going to leave, or I'm going to join another team in my case, or I'm going to leave the company, go somewhere else. Even like this, right? Like we've done this for over 2 years now, right? Us three. Nothing is perfect. We're three very different people, but the fact that we turn up every week and do this,
Dude, we make it work, man. I
we
have
make
to say,
it work
like,
because
we should make it
it's
work.
quite incredible. And the fact that all three of us have never been in the same room together, which is wild, right? Like actually in person. So that shows again that's the other part of this is it doesn't mean everything's perfect. It's kind of like a marriage or a relationship. You're gonna have arguments. You're not gonna agree on everything, but the main principles are like, do you respect each other? Are you able to resolve conflicts in a fair way that you both feel like you're actually hearing each other out? And sometimes there's a dynamic where one person is in charge. Of marriage isn't necessarily like that, but a job is, because you've got a boss a lot of the time, or if you're the CEO or you're reporting to the CEO, they are your boss or whatever. So it's just, I think going into it, a lot of this is always about expectations going in. So if your expectation is, I need to make sure this is going to be fair and equitable for me when I'm working with this person, or you know that there's a part of this person who you don't fully like 5% of the way they do things, but you're like, there's enough upside for me in this relationship, for this job, for example, that I'm going to stick it out for a year and try it out, and I'll see if that grows and improves, similar to your relationship. I think that's not a bad thing either. Sometimes that's what you need to do. But specifically betrayal, I think the word betrayal, again, is a really strong word.
It's loaded, yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely felt like, a little bit of a stabbing in the back, or someone just, saying, oh, I did this when it was really you. Or, again, I don't want to go into too much specifics, but like one time at Google specifically, we had a pretty bad, I don't want to like throw this person under the bus, but one of my managers at the time ended up being a terrible manager. And it was not just me, it was the whole team. We had big issues. And I'd say that half of our Google careers were impacted significantly with our progress because of what happened.
I didn't mean to laugh. But
No.
The reason I chuckled is because you said, I don't want to get into specifics.
Specifically in this year, yeah. No. And again, I'm kind of over that situation, but essentially, I did feel for many years.
Yeah.
I would come into work basically, and I didn't have a green card, so I couldn't leave. Salty. I'd be in the shower in the morning, and that's the worst. That's the worst feeling, right? I'd go in the morning saying, I don't feel like I'm getting rewarded, and I have no way out. And I've like basically been promised one
visa,
thing.
Brother. I know that feeling, dude. I know the feeling.
And so I'd say a lot of people, this happens a lot in jobs because you're not in control. And that's probably one of the reasons I don't have a job anymore, is because that is something I value more than an average person. And now I'm okay with the downside of all the things I do now, less stability in a way, in some ways leaving money on the table.
Yeah, you
versus,
make that trade-off.
Yeah, but the trade-off is fair because I'm valuing the things I value, and that includes not having to work with people I don't want to work with, essentially. So yeah, again, that happens to everyone in different situations. Sometimes it's really extreme, and in that scenario, you kind of just need to look at what can I change. If you can't change much about that scenario, so for me specifically, I didn't have a green card. I couldn't leave the company unless I needed to leave the country, which I wasn't willing to do.
Yeah.
So I said, I need to find something outside that's going to keep me going. And that's when I started doing the spoken word stuff. Then I started the podcast, and that helped me eventually leave the company when I was ready to do it. When I was running to something, not running away. Because by then I was at peace with the situation, and I was still fine. I did completely fine in my time there, but it was just that specifically, it was like a 6 to 12 month period where I was like, oh, this is just not going to work. And so eventually ended up working fine anyway. But I would just say, yeah, look at those things. If you don't want to work with that person long term, like don't waste your time, because it's eventually going to come up. You know what I mean?
You know that. I think the key point from what Bilal said is this: is like you may not have the optionality for a number of reasons, immigration reasons, like we both dealt with, early in your career reasons, financial reasons. But yeah, something to think about. The only other thing I'd add is if you do, and if you're fortunate enough to be in a situation where you get to pick and choose, like if you have an opportunity to do something new with somebody, is this the one thing I've taken away from my corporate career is you really want to work with people that can actually do their job.
Yeah.
And this sounds really abstract.
You don't always have to like them either.
Yeah, you don't even have to like them. It's like, is this person like competent?
Like, that's the word. We said it at the same time. Yeah.
You know what I mean, right? It's like working with somebody that isn't good at their job or doesn't do what is required of them. They bitch, they moan, they gossip. It just sucks the soul.
It sucks the energy out of you. Yeah. Exactly. And that's a great way to put it. I would say, and like just doing the basics. Honestly, I've spoken to quite a few people about this recently. Just like answering emails on time, texting you
Dude,
back
just
on
like
time,
getting the
being
stuff that,
like
yeah.
working to a deadline, like those things that we kind of grew up in a work culture where that is the basic, right? Like if you're not even that smart, you can have a pretty good career
Oh yeah,
just
you can
being
grind yourself while
someone
just
with a
being the
good
person that gets the job
attitude.
done.
You say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. You're going
You
to
know
say you
what?
turn up at a certain time, you do
Let
it.
me add the exact point that you're making, but I will try to articulate it because when you're saying it, it brought so many memories to mind. It's like, can you trust the idea of trusting somebody? Is like, you know, those people you start to work with, I'm trying to articulate it. It's like, you just know they'll get the job done.
Yeah.
You send them 5 things that you just know they'll get done. But then conversely, there are people that you literally cannot.
You have to triple check everything.
Triple check everything. Those are the absolute worst to work with, right? Is because you're like,
if you're the employer and
I'm
you're
not even
paying,
unloading
that
anything
is,
off to you, right? It's like,
yeah.
like you're making me do more work.
No, that I
Anyways.
100% agree. Yeah, and the last thing I'd add on that is sometimes 80% like is the best you're gonna get of someone doing it, and you can't need to accept the time where they're messing up and stuff like that. And yeah, that's just it is crazy how many people just literally just don't follow like basic instructions and stuff like that. And
oh my goodness,
it's
man.
a lot. Yeah. Anyway,
that was triggering. That was the most triggering
yeah,
for me.
Yeah. Let's switch up the mood a little bit. But great question again. Niall Quinn asks, what's the last big thing you changed your mind on and what caused this change? I think we did something similar to this in the past.
Yeah, we did a whole episode on it.
Anything that does come to mind though?
Well, let's have them. Why don't we throw up a graphic of what episode that was here because we've totally forgotten.
We did ideas that changed our lives. And
we literally did this. Yeah. So listen to that.
But was there anything since then? I'd say that as anything recently that you changed. It doesn't even have to be a big one. Just as even a little one. You changed your mind on that? You were like, oh, I used to do something, or used to think something was going to happen. It doesn't anymore.
I'll mention the one we did on that was the big one was about religion. It's like I went through the whole phase.
Oh yeah, that was good.
The atheist phase, and then reading like Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens. I think they are fantastic authors and thinkers. Not everything they do, but a lot. But yeah, I switched my mind on the importance of religion. I'm still not a very religious person at all. But I understand why my parents are. We talked about that. But anything since then that I've changed my mind on? No, nothing I can think of.
All right, fair enough. I'm just trying to think if I have anything coming to my one is very specific and it's probably not that interesting. It's more about kind of health stuff because it's very topical, but maybe we skip that one for now.
You know what? I will say one thing actually.
Go on.
I wrote about it a couple weeks ago about Rick Rubin, super producer. He's done every artist under the sun, every genre. Like Red Hot Chili Peppers, Jay-Z, Eminem, Johnny Cash, etc. Anyways, he had a book, Creative Act. He went on a tour. We actually talked about it, a podcast tour. But he actually said something that I fully... It's not something I changed my mind on, something I didn't even think about. He said that there's no such thing as wrong taste. He says, you can't have a wrong taste. It's like you have your own taste. People might not like it. Doesn't make it right or wrong. There can be tastes that last a long time and that have longer shelf lives, but to say somebody has a right or wrong taste is completely not true. And I agree with him. And I'll take one example. It's like my parents love durian fruit. I hate it. It smells awful. And they used to eat it all the time. Do you know durian? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Spiky fruit on the out. Dude, it smells so bad that a lot of hotels in Southeast Asia don't even allow people to bring it into the hotels. So my parents love it, but that's just a perfect example. They have a taste in that. I can never understand it. It's from their upbringing culture, and I think this applies to almost anything. Taste in music, taste in television. You go around the world, people have different tastes in anything. It's not right or wrong. There is no right or wrong. That's all. That's the only thing I'd add.
Yeah, respect. Are you right for time for another 10 minutes or so?
Yeah, let's do a couple more.
All right, cool. One question someone asked again about family stuff. Let me just see where that is gone here. 1 second. There we go. Yeah, so this is from Parin, Parin. Thanks for sharing this. This is more for you, Trung, since you have a family. What kind of trade-offs do you have to make between having young families, also keeping a space to pursue creative ideas and opportunities, especially when things blow up or go viral surprisingly? I know you've kind of talked about this because I know you've talked about like being with your kid and something's popping off in your phone and how you have to create these boundaries, but how do you deal with that? And also being, you're full-time doing your own stuff. How do you create those boundaries to just do that?
It's hard, man. Yeah, great question. I would love Jack's response on this actually, because he's got two. Well, here's
Well,
a
I
crazy
think
thing.
he
We
would say
talked
real
about
quick,
it.
the spouse is a big
Yeah.
part of that, right?
He said it actually. He tweeted about it last week for the Christie's auction. He quote tweeted Celia's tweet about how this is a 4 to 5 year journey for Jack, her, and Visualize Value, his company with her. And well, I'll give Jack. I would love for Jack's answer on this because we actually, Bilal, you brought it up. Is like every time he's had a kid on the way, it's like pushed
He
him.
goes ham, yeah.
Yeah, because he's like, oh shit, here comes
It's like
those future
caveman.
private school, those
Yeah.
future private school fees. Here come them future ski lessons. So for people that don't know, Jack did
Ski
his
lessons,
checks.
love that. Yeah,
I'm not even joking, man.
No,
There's
you're right.
that-
You're right.
He launched a checks NFT the same week his second child was born.
Incredible.
Like it was like. So I'll say this: it's extremely hard to have that space because to do quote unquote creative work, particularly and you know, we're niche because we write, we create content. Like that's my creative work. You need you need space. You need time to sit in front of a computer for but I haven't been able to sit in front of a computer for 4 or 5 hours and just dump things for 5 years. I have to pick and
Did you
choose my
used to do
spots
that
now.
before? That was how you got stuff
yes,
done?
I was like creative. You block off hours, right? And
Yeah.
you just try
But
to grind
were
it
you
out.
productive for 4 or 5 hours at a time often?
No, but like you want to give yourself that
Yeah,
time,
yeah,
right? It's
that
like because you know
time,
how
yeah,
like
yeah,
like, you're just like, oh, at least if I give myself 8 to 9 or no, 8 to 12, something has to come out of that, right? It's hard. It's extremely hard. So one thing I will say is that my son will be in school full time, and that's 8 hours a day in September. And you know, part of me is quite sad about it because I've been working from home his entire life, and I do spend a lot of time with him. Not all of it is attentive, but I know compared to a lot of my contemporaries that I speak with, like I spend a lot more time with my kids. You know, I'm fortunate in the sense I get to work from home and on my own schedule. But yeah, there's nothing to say. It's like you spend less time than you can on creative outlets, and that means you work at night. But now I know that I have this time block coming back, and we'll see what happens. To answer the question fully, is I'll say just be willing and ready, whatever your kid pace is, to know that there's this first 4 or 5 years before they're in school full time, you're not going to be able to go 100% into your creative work. You're just not, because they're eating your brain. Having said that, the constraints that they give on your time might force you to do better work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
I've heard that from people, even on the pod, where they had kids and they said they're actually more productive because they basically just have 2 modes now. It's like family mode and work.
Or animal mode, right?
Animal mode versus before, for this guy in particular, a guy called Christoph, it was like family time was his girlfriend or wife, and then going out with the boys and doing a bunch of social stuff, which obviously is important. And then work, and then now he basically just cut out a big segment.
Yeah.
You know, it goes from 50% time to 10 or something like that.
Yeah, you know what? I'll add this. I think you're 100% right. I don't know even if the quality gets diminished of the work, because I've been more productive as a creative outputter than I had when I didn't have kids. Well, you know what? I have to return to this question in a year when he's in school full time. Then I can do a proper A/B test.
Yeah. All right, cool. Another one from Niall. He said, do any of you use mastermind groups? And if so, what is the key to an effective mastermind group? So I'll quickly say, I think we're both shaking our heads. No. And again, I'm not again. I think the phrase mastermind group kind of brings up this idea where you pay several $1,000s a year and you're in this group, and it feels very affiliate marketing, which, I know it's not just affiliate marketing, but that is big in that world. I think the idea of having a group of friends or people that you know where you talk about stuff and you help each other out and you're going through similar things is a very positive thing. I think the word mastermind gets thrown in this kind of business world as a very specific segment of that, right? So I'm not against having a group of friends. Like me, you and Jack are an example of that. Like I would say we've all been doing similar things in different ways. And we'll help each other out. We'll talk about, have you guys got a recommendation for this? Or, you can't learn from each other just by being in that group organically. And that's kind of always been my approach is anytime I've gone from student to starting a little company as a young person, getting my first job, to getting, doing a podcast, to doing whatever, there's always been, I've seeked out those people. And actually the best way for me to do that was like the podcast, because you can invite anyone, create a relationship with them. And then if you actually get on, you can cultivate that relationship. And sometimes it becomes a more formal thing. But specifically a mastermind group where you're paying money, or you're 10 of you meet every week because you're all, e-commerce founders under $1 million a year in revenue, like that can be incredibly helpful.
I'm
but
sure
I haven't personally done that. So
me neither.
Yeah.
My answer is I've never done any of them. I have no interest. I've heard people have done it, that it does work. You do want, Bilal nailed it. You kind of want these small groups that are on the same similar adventures as you. And every person has 5 different lives, right? You find a group where you deal with parents, for example, and then you find a group where, like, I talk with Bilal and Jack about the podcast and about stuff that we're seeing on the internet. But I don't like the formal part of it. So specifically why I don't like the formality part is like, I hate scheduled stuff. I just don't like it. Yeah, that's
Trung never accepts the calendar invite for the show, but he's always here. He's here every week. But I know, but again, not complete shit on it. I will say there are.
We're not shitting on it, man. It's different stuff for different stories. Hey, everybody got their own taste. Everybody got their own taste.
And I will say specifically, if I was doing something like a real, proper agency of a certain size, or I was doing an e-commerce thing, that is very replicatable. It 100% helps, right? But you need to find out the right people. And generally, I find it better to just create that group, be the person who creates that group of people and say, hey, I've got a podcast, you've got a podcast, and I'm bringing a few people together. Would you guys like to chat about this once in a while? You don't have to go and spend $5,000 a year. So you go in a Zoom room or something like that. So that is that. Anyway, good question either way. A couple last ones for us. Mike asked a question. We kind of touched on this before, but let's see if you have anything to add. I'm a screenwriter who's recently sold my first script option and been signed to a major agency. Congrats. As someone who hangs out on the same area of the internet as you guys, I'm arguably one of the non-Ladite writers most likely to side with using AI and benefit. But even so, I can't help but wonder if I should shift career track as it's coming for us. Would love your thoughts on this. Don't want to be the black cabbie left behind by Uber, which we referenced a few episodes ago. I think we did this in the Hollywood episode recently. That might have been 2 weeks ago. But curious, any other thoughts on that as someone who is also a writer?
Yeah, what I would say is, well, first of all, writing, as you see with this strike, is already difficult enough as it is for a career. So maybe things will change after WGA strikes. And something we mentioned was like they want guaranteed minimums, more writer slots in rooms, and then more residual on the upside. Listen, if they come out of this negotiation with those kind of benefits, yeah, you can make a career writing. I would be worried less about AI substituting on the creative side. And this is something we go back to every time on the show. It's like your personal, you have your own life circumstances. It goes back to the taste. It's like you have your own taste. You have a taste of one that you've cultivated your entire life. Your job is to cultivate that taste. And if you can cultivate a taste which is truly unique, and it should be unique because it's your own life and your own life experiences, then that's less for you to worry about for AI to replace you as a creator. What AI can do is supplemental to you. That's how I look at it, right? It's supplemental to your skill set. It'll help you ideate, it'll help you edit, and help you get started and keep moving and writing momentum. But yeah, congratulations on selling that, man. And,
respect.
I would not at all be worried about being replaced as a creative entity. But just the job itself is already difficult, right? So that's what I'm saying.
Great. All right, cool. We're going to wrap this up soon. Great questions, everyone, this week. Alex asks, is one toad still worth one toad? Always, not investment advice, but I still hold on to my toad that I paid a stupid amount of money for from the 2021 hype cycle. So there's my answer, but definitely no investment advice. Here's a fun one, maybe to wrap us out. Unless, Trung, do you have any questions that you'd want to ask?
No.
All right, cool. Let's
no, because I don't have any.
Yeah, that's cool. If you could play any actor, or this is related to our chat last week, so this is a movie fun episode thing. If you could play any actor or character in a movie, what would it be? And so an example is like playing Leo in Wolf of Wall Street, Denzel in Training Day. Like, well, I guess like who is the character that you're like, oh, that would be so cool to have been that actor doing that?
John McClane, Bruce Willis in Die Hard. As
Oh
one of
yeah,
my
okay,
favorite films. Yeah, there
that's
we
the
go,
classic.
man. Yeah, I'll do that one. Although Training Day, man, dude, you said
Training
Zell.
Day,
Oh,
yeah. Oh my God,
dude,
incredible.
that might be the other one. One of
No
those two,
spoiler
man.
alert. Doesn't
No
always
spoiler.
end well, but yeah. But what a ride. I'm trying to think of my one actually. Anything else on Die Hard before while I'm thinking
Well,
of my
I
answer?
say, you know what I would say? Let me guess you get a little bit more tactical about it. I wouldn't want to do a film that has CGI. I don't want to be
Mm,
talking and walking in front of it. So all of these Marvel films,
yeah.
I want to do something that's
No,
real
Space
live
Jam.
action, man. You might have to go straight Tom Cruise, man, with the crazy stunts that he's done.
What
So
was
like
the
maybe
old?
that.
Remember Speed? Speed was
Yeah. Oh
incredible.
yeah, dude.
Was that
Keanu
Tom? Who
Reeves.
was that?
Todd
No,
Keanu.
that was who was in
Keanu
Speed?
Reeves. Keanu
Oh, Keanu
Reeves.
Reeves. Yeah,
Yeah.
Matrix. Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, Matrix is the obvious one as well. Actually, to be fair, Matrix is the obvious one, but also incredible because you'd be doing all that cool shit. That would be the one thing where the CGI actually would be kind of cool just to see it all happen in person. I'd also say I'm just trying to think of some of my favorite films. Obviously, all the gangster films are great, like Goodfellas and Scarface and stuff like that. But that's kind of not the best. I'd say I'd pull out one of these old. I mean, obviously Bond as well. Again, very obvious, but
Oh,
just that would be
just to
very
have
cool.
like the just because
Just
of
to
the
feel like a
IP.
G.
Yeah, the G. Just getting that
Woo.
nice suit. Get a
Oh
nice
my
tailored
God.
suit.
Oh my God, the best. Yeah, because I just got a tux and it's very top of mind. Man, tux shopping is absolutely insane. I didn't realize how.
I can't ever say I've ever done tux
Oh my
shopping.
God, ridiculous. Anyway, the last one I would say probably like Snatch or Lock Stock. You've seen those
Oh
movies,
yeah,
like a
yeah,
Guy
yeah.
Ritchie
Of
movie?
course, man. Guy Ritchie.
One of
Yeah.
those like Turkish or one of those random characters that isn't the main guy, but is one of the main guys just to be in that fun film, just to be a part of it. That would be kind of fun. So maybe that would be my answer. All right. I think that was everything, mate. I think we did well here. Again, sorry we didn't get Jack on this timing wise. It's not, didn't work out to have all three of us here, but we will have Jack back soon. And Trung may be away by then. And just a heads up, we will very likely be putting out an episode, a Trung experimental episode in a few weeks as
A
well.
single deep dive topic. We've talked about how we like the individual topics,
Yeah.
but we'll just tease that now.
Slightly different format. So yeah, definitely watch out for that. I think that'll be probably first week of June. We'll probably try to put that out as well. So that'll be a different format. Let us know what you think of that one. Hope we got to most of your questions. There was one question on Formula One, which we didn't do because we did a whole episode on Formula One.
Yeah, and that's a
in the
meaty
past.
one. We could,
It's a meaty one. Yeah, we could do our episode, but thanks for sharing that as well. Thanks for your help and support, sharing this with the friends in the group chats and commenting, sharing on Twitter, etc. We appreciate you guys, and we will see you next week. Cheers.